sound. That's weird. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Mac and Jack Sports Show, streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch, 8 to 10 a.m., Wednesday through Sunday. You can see our Facebook show on Mac Sports and Northeast Streaming Sports Network with our platforms, also on Twitter and Instagram. Like, follow, share, comment, and subscribe when possible. Check out the website at macandjacksports.com called Mac's Insiders for information on weekly guests and also on our sponsors, the sports links right there on the website to their products and services. I'm Mac with your co-host, the legendary Jack Hirsch, boxing writer and former president of the Boxing Writers Association of America, bringing you national sports with a special focus on Northeast professional sports from New York, Boston, and Philly. Good morning, Jack, and happy New Year.
Good morning and a happy New Year to you, Mac, and a happy New Year to those viewers who are actually watching us now. We realize that some of the people who usually watch us are probably asleep now, having stayed up late, celebrated New Year's. So if they don't hear us wish them a happy New Year, it's because they've joined us in progress. But we're wishing everyone the best of health and happiness for the new upcoming year.
Yeah, out with that last terrible 2020, Jack, where a lot of different things happened that not only in sports, but just around the country and around the world that kind of set us back to 1918 when they had the Black Plague. So, the first time really since then that something this big has hit the world and the country. And I'm kind of glad that it's over, and hopefully we start getting some vaccines and treatments so that people can, take a break from being scared, at least, about catching COVID. So,
well, when you think of societal things, in the last decade, I was put out of my home for a while because of a hurricane, now the pandemic. And if you looked forward, it would be hard to visualize such a thing like that happening. So, hopefully the worst is behind us all.
Oh, definitely, Jack. And on today's show on the Mac and Jack, we're calling it the Mac and Jack New Year's Day show for today. We're also streaming on Northeast Streaming Sports. Today's schedule on the show, we have Byron Williams, our NFL analyst. He hasn't got back to me yet, Jack, to make sure that he's coming on. I don't know if he's still sleeping or not.
Byron's dependable.
Yeah, he wished me a happy New Year late last night, just before I went to bed. So I don't know if he was out partying or what, but Byron doesn't seem like a kind of a partying kind of guy. Maybe he is. I don't know. But
well, really in his younger days, he looks like he was. In his younger days, maybe not now, but
right. So
I'm sure back in the day, Byron got around.
Okay, he probably did. We also have Keith Engle coming on. He's our Patriots insider. He also talks about the Knicks with us. He has his own show that he hosts, a very good one called TGI Sports Talk. So they'll both be in here today, giving us their opinions and their insights on the NFL and a little bit about basketball. So that'll be fun to have them, and it always is Friday for our weekend review. So let's get to the sports updates, Jack. Some crazy things happened in the sports world yesterday, and I want to talk about the brawl between Tulsa and Mississippi State. at the end of the game. I mean, I don't know. I coached for years, as you know, and if my players ever, they wouldn't even think of doing something like that after the game or during the game, or they would have been maybe kicked off the team. I mean, it's not a fight. It's not a boxing match. It's not a wrestling match. It's not my gang versus your gang. It's about football, though it's very physical, competitive, and it's a game that some people call the controlled war or a violent chess game. Emotions, especially after a game, where the game is over, the best team won, or the best team lost, however you want to look at it. There's no place in sports for something like that, especially at the college level, Jack.
Look, I understand that tempers sometimes flare in sports, fights break out, melees take place, and so on. But there's got to be a stopping point. There's got to be a stopping point. Yesterday in the game in which Mississippi State beat Tulsa 28-26 in the Armed Forces Bowl, things got dangerously out of control and stayed that way for a long time. They crossed a line from sports into criminal activity.
Right.
And something drastic has to take place as far as the consequences go as a result. I don't want to hear players are just suspended for a little amount of time. This was their last game of the year. If it was a senior who was directly involved initiating that, they should be kicked out of school immediately. Anyone involved on that who pushed the button too far should be kicked out of school. Law enforcement should be looking into this very carefully as far as criminal charges. And what disturbed me with the coaches, the coach of Mississippi State, Mike Leach, after, he wasn't that bad, even though he came across looking kind of foolish. He'd say, dumb, 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 dumb. Who knows who started what was dumb? Obviously, it was dumb. It was ridiculous. It was sheer stupidity what took place, and so dangerous what took place. He says he doesn't know how it started. He's not necessarily exonerating his own team. Well, it was both teams involved. But Philip Montgomery, the coach of Tulsa, I would fire him immediately. This guy is an absolute clown afterwards by saying, well, we're a team. We stick together. We fight together. We stand up for one another. That's not standing up for one another. That was like a gang, a pack attacking someone else, trying to hurt someone else. And he's exonerating that.
Yeah.
And he's condoning it.
Yeah.
I mean, the guy, Philip Montgomery, as far as I'm concerned, Tulsa University has to let him go. No, he took no accountability for what his team did at all. And it was sickening. But what gets me to Mac, every time it looked like they might finally have peace, they get the players together, so on, and the coaches weren't really controlling them because the players were in one another's face. And a firm disciplinarian, when he tells his coach points, you better get to the locker room now. If you're a real disciplinarian, that player's going to run to the locker room. You have him under control. And you're talking about college players, young guys. We're not talking about established NFL veterans who feel a sense of independence, who are grown men. You're basically talking about college kids here. The coaches couldn't control them, but every time it looked like there might be peace, one of these jerks, one of these players and I'll call them jerks, would start the melee again, start swinging. And of course, it just takes one to start swinging, then a second, third join, and then before you know it, everything is going on in melee. I saw some players trying to run to the locker room. Other players from the opposing team would follow them and start fighting.
Yeah.
The state troopers had to come out there. They couldn't even make peace.
Yeah.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Philip Montgomery, the Tulsa coach, the way he talked after that game, I was disgusted, saying, oh, we stay together. We're a team. Like, that's team unity to him. That's criminal activity. And Mike Leach wasn't that much better. the players who were the worst the players who were the worst ones who infringed upon the process of trying to break up the fights and would continue to go at it. We had the number 4. Oh wow, I don't want to say which team it was. For some reason, Mississippi State at Tulsa. He would be kicking another play on the ground, and then he would cowardly run away. You know, that type of thing. He should be kicked out of school. A number of them have to get, at the very least, if you're not going to bring criminal charges against the MAC, they have to be kicked out of school. If they're not seniors, they have to be banned from playing anywhere next year from the NCAA. They're not allowed to play football next year under any circumstance.
Well, Jack, I mean, me being a professional football team scouting department or general manager, even the owner of a team, if I saw something like that, and these guys, maybe they're good enough to get a shot in professional football, I wouldn't even be looking at them, Jack. Honestly, I mean, I would be like, these people are these players that participated in that. They have no control. There's red flags already up on them, and if you can't, as a young kid, playing an amateur football game, and I know there's repercussions to, maybe getting the pros and stuff, but if you can't control yourself on the sideline and you can't, after a game, whether you win or lose, control yourself, I don't want you on my team. I don't care how good a player you are. There's too many good players out there in college football. So to me, they just hurt themselves. I agree with you about the coach who said that we stick together. He would be sticking the clothes out of his locker into a bag and be leaving my program. I mean, that's just.
You would fire him too.
Immediately.
I'd absolutely. If I were the school president, the board of directors, he's gone. That guy is a clown, to say such a thing.
There's no question, because what that shows to me is he has no control over his program, and that he's actually defending that kind of behavior. So I agree with you 100%, and hopefully actions taken by both schools, really, Jack. So we have the Green Bay Packers losing their left tackle. I think it's Dave Bakhtiari. I hope I'm pronouncing it right, for the season with a knee injury. So, Jack, a good player, an all-pro from what I read, or could be a all-pro, lost on the Green Bay Packer offensive line. I don't know if that'll affect, Aaron Rodgers in the passing game or the running game, but that's a blow to the Packers.
Hey, listen, the most valuable commodity is Aaron Rodgers. That's what differentiates the Packers from the other top teams in the NFC. So any loss of pass protection, no matter how small it is for Aaron Rodgers, is good news for the other teams. So,
definitely.
With COVID and everything, it's so late to replace someone else. Not that you're ever going to get someone, any team, that they're going to get the caliber of one of their starting players, but you can make quick moves and so on and get someone to patch up a certain position. But with COVID this year, that even becomes much harder.
Definitely. And speaking of COVID, Jack, your famous relief quarterback, Fitzpatrick, has tested positive. He won't play Sunday, and this is a very important game to Miami. They got to win this game. And it's going to be up to Tua. We're going to see what Tua is made of this weekend, Jack. We'll see if he is the quarterback that's going to lead Miami to the promised land. He's got to have a good game this week. If he doesn't, they're playing, if I'm correct,
Buffalo.
Buffalo, a tough team. Buffalo's still in there fighting for home field advantage and stuff like so. We'll see what happens, Jack. This is Tua's chance to prove to the Dolphins and to you that he is the starting quarterback, Jack.
No, he doesn't have to prove it to me that I know he is. Tua really doesn't have weapons on offense. The Dolphins haven't. That's why Brian Flores has done a great job. Their running game isn't particularly strong. They don't have the explosive wideouts that other teams have. They're going to have to open it up a bit with Tua this week. Buffalo has a pretty good offense, and I'll tell you, if the Dolphins lose this game, there's an excellent chance they won't make the playoffs. They still can make it with a combination of losses by some other teams like the Ravens and the Colts and Tennessee. they can still, get into the playoffs. But logically speaking, the teams the Dolphins would need to lose are playing inferior opposition. So you can't count on those teams to lose. The Dolphins got to do it themselves
And sticking with
get the playoffs. But if they don't, if any team can afford not to make the playoffs and still leave the locker room with a smile on their faces at the end of the season, it's the Miami Dolphins. If they miss the playoffs, they would have gone 10-6.
right.
That's fantastic progress.
Yeah, but
on the year. They would have signed up for that, Mac, in the beginning of the year.
When you get to this point, Jack, you don't think like that. You think you're going to the playoffs. You think you're going. You want to. You're there. This is your chance. You may not get another chance. Who knows what will happen next year? This is their chance. This is their chance to get in the playoffs and maybe make a run. I mean, that's how you got to think playing the game, and that's how the coaches are going to be thinking too. So I do understand that being 10-6 from last year is a heck of an improvement. But while you're there and it's your time to shine, they're thinking it's their time to shine. So
you want to hear something funny, Mac? Too, we don't take third-string quarterbacks that seriously because we think they're rarely going to get in. They're not important. It's like having an insurance policy you're highly unlikely to use. And sometimes you think, I'm paying these rates my whole life. And look at all the money I laid out that I didn't have to lay out for something.
Sure.
Josh Rosen was the Dolphin number 3 quarterback, actually, to start the year. And they got rid of him because between Tua and Fitzpatrick, he wasn't going to see the field logically. Okay, so I let him just ride away. But he'd had experience from the year before, with the Dolphins. He kind of knew the system. Wouldn't he have been a nice piece to have just in case Tua gets injured during the game? Yeah. Just in case. I have no idea who'd be coming in for Miami if Tua has to go out for any reason, but it'll be desperation time for sure.
Sometimes it's like former quarterbacks from high school and college that are now wide receivers and running back, Jack, that end up being the third string.
Well, look at the Rams, for example. John Wolford. They need this game to make the playoffs. He's going to be quarterbacking for them. He's never taken a snap in his NFL career.
Be very interesting.
He's in such a vitally big game. And now even he's saying, John Wolford, well, the coaches are giving me some packages they think I could run. Once you hear that, someone's doomed for failure, where they're throwing a few very conservative packages. You know what those packages say, Mac? As a coach, don't turn the ball over.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll get lucky. Maybe the other team will fumble deep in their own territory and we could run the ball in. Those packages are screen passes, little dump-offs, 8-yard passes. Once in a while you throw deep and you're told to overthrow the ball if there's any doubt at all, just to keep the defense honest so they think you're a threat to throw long. But you have to, we've learned this about the NFL. You have to have really good backups. And my philosophy, especially on the most important position of all, the quarterback position, I hate when someone says it's their team. The quarterback position, to me, is a shared position. I would call all my quarterbacks and say, this is a shared position. One of you are going to play this position more than the others, but you're sharing this position. And I'll eliminate the term starting quarterback because we're all quarterbacks, I tell them.
I don't know. That's like saying they're all pitchers and you have a starting pitcher and a relief pitcher, Jack. But anyway, let's keep pushing on with the COVID situation, because for the Browns right now, Jack, they had to close their facility. Pittsburgh was resting Ben Roethlisberger. People thought that maybe, and other starters, and people thought, Cleveland had to win this game and that even Pittsburgh was underdogs. Now with the 19 more additional cases to the Browns organization, they closed down the practice, the practice field. So I don't know now, Jack. I don't know if the Browns will beat the Steelers, even with Rudolph as the quarterback, because now you're talking about practice time, working together, getting your execution, getting your game plan ready for the Steelers, who still are going to come out and play aggressive. They still want to win. And I think it made it an even ball game now, Jack.
Yeah, I mean, who can tell? It's funny. A moment ago, I said the Dolphins are 10-5. If they're 10-6, don't make the playoffs. Their fans would have been happy with that in the beginning of the year. The Browns have an identical record to the Dolphins. They're 10-5. They're in the same position. They haven't quite locked up the playoff position yet. If they lose this game to Pittsburgh, they might not make the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's going to be a major disappointment to their fan base because a couple of weeks ago, they practically had a playoff position locked up. Their
Right.
team was looking good. Then COVID hit, injury hit. A lot of players were out against the Jets. They were badly decimated. They lost that game. And to lose to Mason Rudolph, who's going to be the starting quarterback of the Steelers, not that Mason Rudolph is that bad. He was a third-round draft pick. And the little he played before when Roethlisberger was out, he wasn't bad. But he didn't show he could be the Steeler franchise quarterback in the future. Let's say, hypothetically, Ben Roethlisberger retired at the end of the year. The Steelers would keep Mason Rudolph on board only until they could get someone else. They would look to see who else they could get that would be better.
No doubt about that, Jack. I mean, they would go for another quarterback. The Red Sox hired the first black female coach for their minor league system. Her name is Bianca Smith. I don't know that much about her, Jack. Of course, the big headline is that she's a female and she's an African American female, and so big news for the Red Sox. Again, I don't know much about her, but that just happened just yesterday or last night sometime. Trask, Kyle Trask, the Heisman finalist, the quarterback from Florida, will be available to draft. He said he's coming out. So there's another quarterback that will be available to some of the teams that need quarterback. The quarterback at that position, a good young quarterback. He seems like he'll be a good one, Jack. I don't know if he's going to be one of the top ones, but he did really good with Florida this year. He was a Heisman finalist, so he's coming out this year. The NFL on pace to set a scoring record, Jack, and a lot of people are I don't say unhappy. Us old school folks with the rule changes to the offense, to me, has hurt the game, in my opinion. It's great to score, but 46-42 to me is not an exciting game. I'd rather see a game at 20-17 or 20-19 with the teams beating the heck out of each other.
That's why, Mac, you're saying you want to watch more soccer because you love those 1-0 games.
No,
right?
I like the defense stopping the offense. I like to see a good running game. I mean, in soccer, you're talking about boring.
Mac, you like smash mouth football.
Yes, I do.
Like smash mouth football. They go at it, and then you have a 17-14 game at the end. I mean, I like the flash.
Yeah.
I like to see the flash. I mean, Mac, you're old school. I'm sure you don't like when the team intercepts a pass, the whole defensive unit runs into the end zone and they pose for picture.
Yes.
You hate that, right?
Yes, I do. I just hand the football over and let's get this thing going, Jack. So, Jack, this time of the show, before we get to our first guest, Byron Williams, with
there's no need to fear. Underdog is here.
Get your pick ready, Jack.
Might be the same as yours.
Criminals in this world appear and break the laws that they should fear and frighten all who see or hear. The cry goes up both far and near for underdog. Underdog.
So, my favorite cartoon maybe of all time, Jack, with that little power ring pill he used to take all the time. The underdog pick for today, Jack. I'm going to go with the let me see. Yeah, Houston Texans plus 7.5 at the Tennessee Titans. Now, there's a couple reasons for this, Jack. One,
why do you have to say plus 7.5?
Because
you're picking them to win the Texans.
Right.
Then I know you're going to come back after the game and say, "Didn't I tell you they covered the points?"
Not at all.
You're picking them to win, not covering the points. I want to get that straight.
I'm just letting the people watching out there and our backstage guests know that we are. This is what the spread is, and we pick anything over 6 points and over, Jack, we don't take the easy way out and go plus 2.5 and plus 3. And we want to make sure that this is a true underdog pick. So there's a couple of reasons why I'm taking Houston to beat Tennessee. It's because I think Tennessee is definitely not as good as they were last year. Their defensive backfield is terrible. They have no pass rush. And J.J. Watt made a statement, and when J.J. Watt makes an inspiring statement like that, the team listens. So I think Deshaun Watson has a good game. The defense comes up, stops that big train over there of a running back in Tennessee, and Houston beats Tennessee this week, Jack.
Mac, I'm going to do something that's very rare. I'm going to use your words. I'm going to get permission from you for everything you said to apply to me as well.
Okay.
The way I feel, exactly the way you said it. I agree. That would be it. If I was looking for something else besides what you said, I'd have a hard time. I mean, the Bengals have won 2 in a row. They're like an 11.5-point underdog to the Ravens, and they're playing in Cincinnati. Ravens need this game to clinch a playoff berth. They're not going to lose to the Bengals with a backup quarterback. Come on, let's get real.
So, Jack.
The Lions are 7-point.
Jack,
Byron is on here.
Byron's ready to come in, Jack. We don't have to cover all the
Byron
other.
will wait a moment. I'll
No.
make it quick, okay?
Oh, I'm bringing
Come
him up,
on.
Jack. I don't know what. I'm not. You're not running the show, Jack. Byron
Yeah,
Williams, our NFL.
Hey,
I
what's up?
say here.
Good morning.
Byron's underdog.
There you go. There you go.
Hey, did I
Honest
win?
sense
Did I
is-
win my pick last week?
No, you didn't.
Byron is so happy because of the Dallas Cowboys. He, could actually win the division, so he's in a good mood.
No, I don't think that's true, Jack. He may live down there, but I know what kind of fan Byron.
Yeah. Well, who do you want? Who do you root for? The Cowboys or the Giants? You live in Dallas, but you played for the Giants.
I got my. It's a NY homecoming this weekend.
Oh,
okay.
Homecoming.
You wouldn't wear that in Jerry's world.
Oh, I bet he does. I bet he wears that very proudly.
I do. I wear my Giant stuff right here in Dallas.
Yes.
Yeah,
sir.
you know what's a funny thing? Like players who played for another team is something. What I got a big kick out of a lot of years ago, when LeBron James first played for the Cleveland Cavaliers, he was an icon in Cleveland. And the Indians are playing the Yankees in Cleveland in a big playoff game. And LeBron James was a Yankee fan. He shows up with his Yankee jersey on, and the people didn't know whether to boo him or cheer him. Like he shows up, they're like puzzled. That's their guy, but he has on the Yankee outfit. So I got a kick out of that.
So let me.
And I grew up being a Cowboy fan too. I love Coach Tom Landry and Drew Pierce. I'm a friend with all those guys. Utah Jones, but when it comes down to rooting for your team, you got to root for your team.
Okay, so Byron and Jack, let's try to be, especially Jack, let's try to be a little professional here, please. We're introducing Byron Williams, our NFL analyst, former wide receiver for 5 different teams in the NFL, most noteworthy, the New York Giants, also played in the CFL and WFL. So he has a lot of experience in football, especially as a wide receiver, and we love to talk to him about in-house stuff and the play and the NFL overall, especially the NFC least. And of course, in that division, we have 2 teams he played for, the New York Giants and the Philadelphia Eagles. So Byron, let's talk about the NFC East for a second. You have 3 teams that are all under 500. 2 of them with 5 games they only won this year, all have a shot at getting in and winning the division. Washington, they win and they're in. If Washington loses, the winner of the Dallas and Giant game end up being the division winner. First of all, what's your thoughts? A lot of people say sort of like, in the NBA, you have, certain teams where they almost do a round robin. I mean, almost all the teams in the NBA get in anyway. But, they have the best records get in, no matter, what you play in, what division you play in. What do you think about? Do you think that the division winner, no matter how many, if he wins 3 games, they deserve to be in the playoffs?
Well, I think you don't really want to change it right now. I think you got to keep it the same. Just due to the fact that, the NFL is very competitive throughout every year. You don't pick and choose sometimes who you play, but you do play those teams twice in the division. So you just got to keep it like it is. I mean, sometimes 1985, the Denver Broncos finished 11-5. They should have went to the playoff, but they didn't go to the playoff. So every year, almost get somebody that don't get to go to the playoff. The coach this weekend is in that same case scenario. They might, if they finish 11-5, they still might not go to the playoffs. So,
very true.
I think, you just got to keep it the way it is. Just keep it consistent. And that way, each division have an award. If you beat everybody, if you have the best record in that division. So I think you got to keep it the way it is.
I agree with that because I think some divisions are just tougher than others, and you may, as you said, you may not get in the playoffs, and you're 5 and you're 5-9, but that would win another playoff. I think you're correct. I think you don't fix something that's not really broke. So, what are your thoughts on Washington? They said that Alex Smith might have a chance to play, but the second string quarterback has been getting all the snaps during practice. Byron, without Alex Smith, do you see the Washington Redskins beating the Eagles?
I really don't. Not without Alex Smith. I just think that Alex Smith just came in and showed what he was all about. His experience and his decision making on the football field is a plus. So you got to just appreciate Alex Smith. I'm glad that he got a chance to come back and play in the games. And if they do play Alex Smith, I think Washington would definitely have a chance of winning the game.
Is practice reps as important for a given week for Alex Smith as it would be for a younger quarterback? Because he's so experienced. Could Alex Smith suddenly be thrown in and know the system so well just because he didn't get the majority of the reps? Would it affect him a great deal?
I don't think so, because Alex Smith just had so much experience. I mean,
yeah.
It'll be the same way with the quarterback and with the Dolphins. I mean, those guys don't need no rep. They done played over 12 years in the NFL, and those guys just know the system. They know the speed of the game. They got the experience. So yeah, they don't.
Well, speaking of that, you just mentioned we're referring to Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's missing Sunday's game because he tested positive for COVID. So that means Tua Tagovailoa is going, it's his thing, sink or swim. Sunday, how do you think he's going to respond against the Buffalo Bills at Buffalo?
I think he's going to respond well. I think he done seen it, and being with Kirkpatrick is a plus. And I think too now he done had the experience, he done had the reps. So I think now they just got to go up there and play. I don't think Buffalo's going to play all their players no way, because they automatically in the playoffs. So that last game, usually when teams are in the playoffs, they rest their key players, and it's just like yesterday, you can't afford to get some of your marquee players hurt with games that don't matter. So,
well, Byron, let's go back to the NFC East again. The Eagles, you still have Wentz there. I would imagine that they're still going to start Hurts for this game. I imagine the Eagles are going to play their hearts out because, I mean, they're all playing for their jobs. Hurts is, trying to show them that he can be their starting quarterback. Do you think, on a small sampling, Hurts looked good, and all of a sudden he looked like a rookie last week? What do you think? Do you think he comes out, looks better, maybe learns some lessons, or do you still think he makes some rookie mistakes, especially against that Washington defense that's one of the best in the league?
Yeah, I think just by putting him in, it changed the morale of the team. And I think he have been doing a good job. Like last week, he have those rookies up and down type spells, that you get with young players, but at least it came in with a different momentum and the mindset for the team. And I think I think he just continue to play him, because now I think they moving in a whole new direction, because their offense is a little bit more dynamic. People are excited about them. Even if the fans are all excited about what's going to happen in Philly in the next year or two. So I think you continue to play him and let him have an open playbook, and let him enjoy this last week of playing.
I'm trying to go inside the head of the Philadelphia Eagle players because the game is on a Sunday night, and it's a big game, not for the Eagles themselves, but for the playoff implications. Are they a little more motivated because they know they're the only game and all their peers around the NFL are watching the game? Their family is tuned in, the fans. They're center stage. Whoever plays Sunday night is center stage on NBC. So the players a little more psyched, meaning they would never let up in the slightest. Not that they would anyway. But what's the difference between a Sunday afternoon game with a ton of other games and you being the only game going on?
I think Sunday night is a great showcase to show your talent, and I think they're going to compete. I think, you go in, you build off of this game. And the one thing about playing in the NFC East, you always want to be the team to knock other teams out of the playoffs. So if the Eagles have a chance, they're definitely going to play hard, and they're going to be focused. They're going to be reared up. They're going to be ready to play this game, I believe.
So you got Dallas and the Giants play beforehand, and whoever wins that team, of course, will be watching to see if Philadelphia can knock off Washington. So Dallas has won 3 straight. They're looking pretty good. The Giants' offense is stagnant. I mean, they're not moving the ball at all. They're not scoring any points. Their defense is still playing really well. If the Giants, I would imagine they would try to get that running game established. You got the offensive coordinator who was the former head coach. Maybe Daniel Jones is a little more healthy. But Byron, I'm a little worried. I mean, I think the Giants can beat the Cowboys, but Dallas has the momentum right now.
Yeah, no doubt. It's going to be a good game. I just think it's going to be hard for the Giants to beat the Cowboys right now with all that momentum that they have the last 3 weeks. And but all things are possible when you go to MetLife. So I'm expecting a real good game. I mean, it's gonna be exciting. But the Eagles gonna probably dictate who end up going to the playoff out of the NFC East. So it's gonna be between the Cowboys and the Giants to go to the NFC East. I do believe that.
An interesting stat that Daniel Jones, and this is hard to believe, has more yards per carry for quarterbacks than any other quarterback in the NFL. But the latest is that Joe Judge is a little upset with Daniel Jones because Daniel Jones is talking about his hamstring injury bothering him, saying he's going to have to stay in the pocket. He can't move around that much. And Joe Judge's feeling is, why are you giving that information away? Keep your mouth shut, don't volunteer information you don't have to.
I think that's part of being a young player. I think sometimes, something slip out of your mouth, but you got to be cautious of what you say. And you really can't tell the team, the inside information like that. So, yeah, he got to learn not to talk about his physical condition and, and what his limitations are. Exactly.
Here's my conspiracy theory with that, Jack and Byron. His hamstring is fine. He said that on purpose. The judge came out and yelled at him to see Dallas thinking that his hamstring is still bothering him. He's going to run like the wind.
Well, I'll see early enough whether he can move around. But if he is lacking mobility, is it smart to blitz him more?
Oh, yeah, no doubt. No doubt. Dallas going to be coming at it for sure. They definitely going to be coming at it.
And Jerry Jones is getting involved with the Cowboys. Did you see saying Randy Gregory, he doesn't like the way he'd been used. He wants to unleash him, basically let him go free, and do his thing. So Jerry Jones is adding in his 2 cents, and he's making it clear what he expects Mike McCarthy, to do.
That's any different, Jack. That's
Jerry Jones. He gonna tell those coaches what he want to see out there on that.
I'll tell you. Don't forget about Jerry. He was a player on the national championship team at Arkansas, so he's been a player too.
Yeah, and I think Randy Gregory has been playing good. I mean, he's back in shape. He's not sitting on the sideline. He'll bring some excitement to the pass rush, which they need.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about a couple games I'm really interested in the NFL overall, Byron. We have the Bears playing the Packers now. Mr. Trubisky's been playing well. The running game is going. The Bear defense, we know, has been good for the last few years. They're playing Green Bay. The left tackle for Green Bay is out. He's injured. Green Bay still in. I don't think they've wrapped up the number 1 seed yet. If I'm correct, I think it's between them and New Orleans. So
I think Seattle might be in it too, though. I think
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, Byron. I'm not sure if they're.
Seattle. Well, if Seattle beats the 49ers, they're 12-4. If the Packers lose, they're 12-4.
Yeah.
And if New Orleans, I think if New Orleans wins, they're 12-4 too. I think there's a 3-way tie. If that's.
But I think with tiebreakers, it comes down. From what I heard, it comes down between Green Bay and New Orleans.
Okay, yeah.
That's what I heard. So they haven't had it wrapped up anyway. So they're going to be playing for that first seed, I would imagine. So Aaron Rodgers is starting. He's going to stay in no matter what. Do you think the Bears have a legitimate shot at beating the Green Bay Packers?
Oh yeah, no doubt. With the Bears still got a great defense, and Biscuit's been playing really well. I mean, he done brought new life back to the Bears. So definitely the Bears are going to be tough to beat this weekend.
Well, I think Mitch Trubisky is playing for the franchise tag. I don't think the Bears would be crazy enough to sign him to a multi-year deal if he has a big game and gets him into the playoffs. But they might franchise him for 1 more year, to just want to know for sure whether he's their guy, going forward long term.
I agree.
Yeah, and I think too is he needed some help. He don't have no spectacular wide receiver, and it took a little while to get the running game going. So definitely he's still a great player and a player.
I don't know about a great player, Byron. I think that was a slip of the tongue. But if Mitch Trubisky should throw 3-4 picks, the Bears lose, and he plays awful, think of next season for the Bears. Think about their quarterback situation. It's a mess.
I met Mitch 2 years ago at the Super Bowl. He's a great individual.
He's a great individual. He's a great guy. I'll agree. Yeah, okay.
Well,
wait. So, listen, when they drafted him ahead of Deshaun Watson and Patrick Mahomes in the same draft, I wasn't arguing about it. I'm not going to go back to see the way things turned out, even though Deshaun Watson was my guy all along, and I thought he should have gone ahead. But I could understand Trubisky going ahead of Patrick Mahomes. But Deshaun Watson is with a bad team in the Texans. Really bad team this year. Talented team, but a bad team. What are they, 4-11? No one's talking about anyone else quarterbacking the Texans but Deshaun Watson. I mean, if I were the Jets, I would trade the number 2 pick in a snap of the finger to get Deshaun Watson if the Texans were crazy enough to do it. But Mitch Trubisky is on a better team than the Texans, and that people are talking about him, whether he should, quarterback the Bears going forward. That's the difference involved. And I think sometimes we get a little fooled when a quarterback has a few good games, such as Nick Foles did when he led the Eagles, on the Super Bowl run at the end, then got him into the playoffs. I don't think we look at the big picture like the big body of work. I think we get excited over what happens over a period of a few weeks.
I agree with that. I definitely agree with that. But, coming out of college, it's still one of those things the way you rolling the dice on these football players. You never know who's going to do what until 4 or 5 years until the NFL. And so that's kind of what you see right now, I think, too, though. But Mitch, coming out of high school, coming out of college, he didn't have that much experience either. Just like some of these players that coming out of college, just like the kid from Washington Redskins, he didn't have that much experience. And these guys need to. I think sometimes their draft decisions are not too sound and solid on making decisions on how these players can mature as they make that transition from college to the NFL.
Well, Mac's guy is Sam Darnold, and Mac he didn't play a lot of games in college. He didn't have a big body of work. So a lot of times these guys get drafted based on potential more than what they actually did.
Yeah, exactly right. And I think the draft system is still kind of iffy if you ask me. I think you really have to really evaluate the quarterbacks because because they come and play 1 year or 2 years doesn't give them like Trevor Lawrence that's going to be a great player.
Byron, you say that, but I still want him to prove it. I mean, Trevor Lawrence is a great college quarterback. We'll see how great he is in the NFL. He has the tools, he has the potential, but he's on an awesome team. He's got a great, talented college, a college that recruits from 4 stars, 5 stars from all over the country. Great offensive weapons, great defense. I'm not saying he won't be. I'm just saying, when you're drafting and you're scouting, and I did a little bit of scouting in my day. When you're scouting players, a lot of it has to do with what team they're on. It's hard to find real good players from smaller schools, from bad programs, because on a bad program they can stand out because they're the better one than anybody else on the team, and on a good program they look great, but they're on a great team. As you said, a lot of it has to do with a crapshoot, whether you think what the potential is, as Jack said. It's a lot based off potential. I think Trevor Lawrence will be a very good college quarterback, but we shall see. I mean, I'm not going to say for sure. Everybody talks about generational talents. Well, there has been a lot of generational talents in the NFL that got drafted and were bust. So, until he shows me in the NFL that he can do that without having the greatest team in the country, we'll see how he does up there. He'll be playing.
Well, Mac, look at the 2 games Clemson played with Notre Dame. When Lawrence was out, Notre Dame actually beat Clemson. When he was in, there was no contest.
Barely beat Clemson. They did that on a fumble recovery by a defensive lineman.
Trevor Lawrence, had he been in the game, they would have beat Notre Dame by a couple of touchdowns.
Well, they did, Jack. All I'm saying is that
rematch.
Clemson without Trevor Lawrence, Notre Dame snuck by them luckily. I mean, that's
without Trevor Lawrence. But had Trevor Lawrence been in for Clemson, Notre Dame never would have won that game.
Well, that's what we just said, Jack. Clemson whipped the heck out of Notre Dame when he was there, and I knew it was going to happen because Clemson almost beat him without Trevor Lawrence. Barely beat them. Luckily beat them. So,
but I just think Trevor Lawrence is going to be a good player. I really do.
I think so too, Byron. I think so too. I just don't make a statement like
but Byron's talking about a few years. We got to wait on a quarterback. But when Jacksonville had Blake Bortles, they kept waiting. And I'm a believer. The guy's got to show me some serious potential within the first 2 years. You can't keep sticking with a guy because you're going to be wasting your time like Jacksonville did with Blake Bortles. And the last I heard of Blake Bortles, if I'm not mistaken, I think the Rams picked him up, if I'm not, and he's backing up Johnny Wolford, who's never taken an NFL snap, who's starting against, who's playing on Sunday against the Cardinals, in the game that the Rams got to win to get into the playoffs.
Yeah, he was on Denver Broncos practice roster.
Yep.
I think.
Yeah.
And since Jack brought it up, that's a very interesting game to me too. Byron, we got the Cardinals against the Rams. The Rams without their quarterback. The Cardinals, Kyler Murray might be hurt. This is do or die for both teams. I would imagine the Rams are going to depend on a running game and short passes and rely on their defense. With the Cardinals, defense is as good as the Rams, and if Kyler Murray is hurt, it could be anybody's game.
Yeah, that's going to be an interesting game. I think with all the injuries that done popped up here this week, and I think, the Cardinals, they really, they up and down. You never know what they're going to do. But the Rams, if you're talking about the coach, I'd rather go with the coach, even though, they got some problems too on the injury side.
Mac, I have a debate question next week. The biggest disappointment in the NFL, the biggest team that's been the biggest disappointment in the NFL.
This year or in the history?
This year, well.
We did the history. What I want to talk about right now, Byron, we had almost an auction. We did sell a couple of the card sets for best wishes, and we had you up on Max Sports with your PayPal account was up there. If you want, I mean, I don't think you have a problem me saying that right now for donations. Your PayPal account, is there any problem me saying that on air?
No, I don't have no problems.
Okay, so it's PayPal /me/BKW Best Wishes. So that's all one word. That's how you make donations to the Best Wishes Foundation, where Byron helps underprivileged kids. There's no government involvement in it. He goes there and he buys stuff for the kids and brings it to them. You ain't got to worry about fraud or red tape or anything like that. They take care of that. I've been asking anybody to donate to this $5, $10, whatever you can afford. And Byron, for people that don't have a PayPal account, is there an address they can send a check, or is there another way that they can send funds to this great foundation?
Yeah, we are Best Wishes Foundation. We do have a box. The address is let me see. It's 843. Let me write it down. I don't know what I did with it.
That's okay.
Oh, it is. It's 835 East Lamar Boulevard, Suite 343. 835 East Lamar Boulevard, Suite 343. That's Arlington, Texas, 76011. 76011, Arlington, Texas. Best Wishes Foundation. That's the mailing address. 835 East Lamar Boulevard, Suite 343.
Okay, excellent, Byron. What would you give right now to be in your prime, a wide receiver in this past crazy league now? I mean, you played for a team that was ground and pound, Byron. To be a wide receiver as fast as you were, and probably still are, what would you give to be a starting wide receiver on one of these throwing teams right now?
I would love to just see if I could play a couple of games to see if I could really put the numbers up. My best NFL game, I had 167 yards. You know, we didn't throw the ball probably over 20 times, 25 times a game. But just to be in these offenses now, you know, Phil McConkey texted me about a month ago. He said, "Byron, I would love to see your talent in these offenses today." And you know, it would have been wonderful to see because of the transformation of the game, and you know, you're throwing the ball and you're getting players open using 4 or 5 receiver sets. And you know, it would be a lot of fun just to do it. And Byron, that was kind of in the World League. When I went to the World League, I got a little taste of that, and scored 11 touchdowns in 10 games. So it would have been fun to just see, you know, my talent and my skill set to play these types of offenses that they play today.
Byron, just a question. You'll see what I'm getting at in a moment, but let me start. Did you play competitive baseball?
I did early on. I did.
Okay. Mac and myself got into a debate, and our debate show, and Mac said I disagreed. The hardest thing to do in sports was hitting a baseball. I mentioned a few other things. Now, what would put more fear under you? Standing with the bat in your hand, facing Roger Clemens, a nasty pitcher, you know, nasty guy with that fastball. If he gets mad at you, he might throw at your head. Or knowing you have to cut across the middle and think of the dirtiest player like Bill Romanowski, ready to cream you. As soon as you lunge for the ball to try to catch it up the middle, you know you're getting creamed. What it puts more fear into you. Maybe the baseball because you're used to the football. But I'll tell you, I'll take my chances with the bat in my hand because I know if I'm cutting across the middle with Bill Romanowski and a couple of guys like him, there's going to be hell to pay.
Yeah, no doubt. Going across the middle, period, in the NFL is devastating.
Oh yeah.
So I would probably say a bat in my hand. I'd rather stand up there with a bat in my hand. But man, that is
Mac,
very challenging. Both of those are challenging.
The reason why I said it's the hardest thing, not the most scary thing, which is two different things, which Jack is alluding to, is because when you have Randy Johnson coming halfway down to home plate throwing 100 miles an hour and coming inside on you, and you got to time that fastball or get out of the way. You got a split second to think about it, and then you got to time it a little bit, and then he throws you a slider that breaks and you're swinging, you know, way before the ball gets there, or you're swinging in the area the ball isn't anymore. And that's why I consider it hard. Not scary, as Jack outlined it when he asked you the question. What is the hardest thing to do? And I still think that with some of these pitchers today and in the past, Nolan Ryan threw 100 miles an hour, but these pitchers can not only throw at that rate of speed, but they also got a breaking ball, and they kind of make you look foolish up there when they come at you and throw that slider coming at your head and breaks over the plate, and you're on your back. So that's why I said it's probably the hardest thing in sports to do.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's nothing like standing up there at that plate with somebody throwing 100-mile-an-hour fastball at you. Exactly.
Right. So
You don't see it too much in football with a quarterback, but every once in a while you see it. And I'm beside myself. The receiver's going to be within 10 yards of the quarterback, and the quarterback's going to drill him with ridiculous velocity. And a little common sense, you're not throwing it, full force when the guy's nearly at point blank range. It never makes sense to me.
But Jack, being a receiver, I have stood in front of these ball machines, and that ball machine kicked that ball at over 100 miles an hour. And Devontae Smith, the kid the receiver from Alabama, he catch at least 100 balls every day. That's why he's so good. So I think if you get used to the speed and the philosophy of the ball, I think that makes a big difference. So that's what you have to do. You have to practice those things.
Some of those catches I've seen this year, Mac, too, Byron, have been incredible. Some of the catches the receivers have made.
But yeah, I think too with the gloves that they have now, these gloves are amazing. They got the sticker on them, so
yeah,
it's hard to. It's kind of I never did have those gloves, but I tell you what, if I had those gloves, I would have been. It makes a big difference.
Well, no, I didn't know that, Mac. I'm being naive here. Okay,
yeah.
You coached. Byron obviously played at the highest level, and I have none of that experience. I know about stickum. To a sense,
that's the old time.
It actually has an effect on catching the ball that the receivers have stickum on.
Of course,
why is that outlawed?
Sometimes in different weather, it can work against you too, Byron. You know that because of But stickum at one time, they used to put on their legs, their jerseys, and everything. I mean, Fred Biletnikoff was famous for that. But the gloves they have today, they're like scuba gloves, if I'm not mistaken.
You need to go get you a pair of those gloves, Jack, because they like.
I use them jogging.
Receiver gloves that they have now that the receiver used to catch the ball. They're kind of like some type of like a poly grip glove. Even when the glove get wet, it still got that poly grip on them.
Yeah. So Byron, before we let you go, there's one question I want to ask you. Now, there's one thing I wouldn't love to do. I played quarterback for a few years, and there's one thing I never did to my wide receiver. I would rather throw the ball away or get hit, and that's when he's turned around and he's the last chance opportunity to throw the ball to, and there's like three guys around him. I know he's going to get creamed as soon as I throw that football. Have you ever gone back to a huddle, whether it was Phil Simms or whoever quarterback you played for, and you knew that linebacker and safety was bearing down on you? You're like near the line of scrimmage, and just so he gets saved from getting hit, he throws that little pass to you, and you know you're going to get creamed, but you're not going to pick up any yardage.
Yeah, and then usually the quarterback first he'll say, "Man, I hate I hung you out to dry," before I even open up my mouth because he know that I'm probably still dazed from that big hit. But
right.
I think the receiver and quarterback can feel the tension out there on that football field. But usually, Phil Simms and Jeff Rutledge and John Hosteller, those guys have said that man, I hate I put you in that predicament because you know that you're gonna get banged and knocked out almost.
Yeah,
but that's part of the game. Right. But sometimes you can get that pass interference, so some good things can come out of that situation.
Yeah, I mean, if the time is right, I'm talking about when he's under duress and he's running out of pocket and he has to throw that ball away, and there you are standing by the line of scrimmage, and he's going to give it to you and say, "Hey, you could take the hit." I mean, I never did that. I almost did it once, and I mean, split second, I just threw it in the ground at his feet so he didn't get hit. But anyway, that's very interesting. So Byron, again, thank you. Sorry, did I interrupt you about something? Go ahead, Byron.
No. You guys are great, man.
No, I just want to say, I just want to ask one thing that I'm curious about the huddle. Take the situation with the Rams or John Wolford. They've lost 2 games in a row. They're in danger not making the playoffs. He's never taken an NFL snap before. He comes into the huddle. He has veteran players there. How important is it for him to take charge of that huddle? Let everyone know, I'm the boss here. I'm in charge. Quiet down. Listen to me. I mean, not insult someone by telling them to quiet down. Say, sure, I got this. Or is he just going to be quiet and wait for the plays to be sent in and just run him? how important is he? How important is it for him to really take charge as essentially a rookie, playing his first game?
I think he done had enough practice time this week, and they already done gave him the game plan. So not only that, he gonna have the support of the players because they know that he got to come in, being fired up and being excited about playing. I think he'll do well. I think the players gonna embrace him. And I think he'll take charge of the huddle. That's what the quarterbacks do. That's what they do in the NFL. They have to take charge.
They'll be very patient with him, Byron. I would imagine this is a huge game, and they don't want to rattle him. That's for sure. So I imagine that they'll stick right behind him and show him all kinds of support. So, Byron, thank you for coming in as you do every Sunday. We love having you. We love having the experience that you have being a player on all different teams and different leagues and your experience with the NFL. You have a great New Year's, Byron, and we'll see you next Sunday.
Okay. You guys have a great
Take care. Happy New Year, Byron.
Happy New Year to you too, Byron. Mm-hmm. So there you go, Jack, the great Byron Williams. Love having him on. I love the experience of an actual professional football player who did it for years.
And he agrees with me. Cutting the middle is more scary than having a baseball.
Yes, he does. But he agreed with me that it's harder to hit the baseball, Jack. So there you go. So we both got a win out of that.
Well,
so
with baseball, you can duck.
Oh,
there's no way you can avoid
are we going to continue
hit
the debate, Jack? You're something else, my friend. I love you. Yes, Jack, I will agree with you after the show. I'm not going to agree with you on air. So we're going to go do our official timeout. Get this out of the way. We have Keith Engle on the other side, folks, that will be here to talk about the Patriots, football in the AFC East, AFC football period, and a little bit of Knicks basketball. Maybe they'll play football. Maybe they do better. So we'll be right back, folks. Stick with us, and we'll have Keith for you on the other side.
If you talk and they will hear you every single time.
Oh, we're getting killed.
Yeah, well, Kyle's not here.
How come?
Kicked off the team. Didn't Tim tell you? Kyle and some other kids got caught drinking beer in the park a couple of nights ago.
Really?
Yeah. 0 tolerance. He's out for the season.
Come on, it's a first offense, right?
That we know of. But why should that matter? He knew not to drink. I made it clear to Matt that's what we expect from him. What have you said to Tim?
Nothing really. You know, a lot of kids try it at this age, so.
Yeah, well, a lot of kids don't try it too. I'm not saying that Matt's going to be this perfect kid, but if I don't tell him what we expect and why he shouldn't drink, how's he going to know?
You think kids that age really listen?
They never admit it, though, but they hear more than you think.
Talk. They hear you. For more information about talking with kids about underage drinking, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov.
If you served honorably in our nation's armed forces and you're looking for a way to continue serving your fellow veterans in your community, then join AMVETS. Each year, AMVETS members volunteer millions of hours at VA healthcare facilities from coast to coast, helping to improve the lives of their fellow veterans through the VA Voluntary Services Program. AMVETS posts and departments also participate in a wide variety of community service projects, ranging from Americanism in our schools to supporting the Special Olympics and Boy Scouts of America. If you no longer wear the uniform today, you can still serve through the AMVETS by joining today at amvet.org.
When you hear the word asthma, you probably think of shortness of breath, coughing, or inhalers. Lots of things can trigger asthma, but the fact is that asthma doesn't just attack, it can kill. But with proper medical management, asthma is controllable. If you experience shortness of breath, wheezing, tightness in your chest, and persistent nighttime coughing, you may have asthma. See your doctor and get them back. You'll breathe easier. For more information, call 211 line. A message from the Connecticut Department of Public Health, keeping Connecticut healthy.
Hi, Grandma. What's for dinner?
Hey, honey, I'm making stew tonight.
Ooh, can Nina come over?
I'm not sure about our new friend. I wonder if there's been any drinking going on. Alcohol at her age can lead to so many bad things. I've been meaning to ask you, what would happen if someone offered you a drink?
Grandma?
This is hard. She's so young, but I know I need to talk to her about it now before someone tries to give her alcohol. If anyone ever does offer you a drink, I want you to say no. I have too much respect for my family, and I don't want to get in trouble.
Okay.
Really?
I promise, Grandma.
I love you too. Okay, how about tasting this stew and telling me what you think?
Some children may try alcohol as young as 9 years old. It's not too early to talk about drinking. For tips on how to begin the conversation, visit underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. That's underagedrinking.samhsa.gov. This message brought to you by SAMHSA and this station.
Okay.
You're listening to the Mac and Jack Sports Show on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Yes, you are. And let's get you back up and on the screen, Jack, because I missed your beautiful face, as I always do. And welcome back to the Mac and Jack Sports Show. We're streaming on Northeast Streaming Sports. We just had Byron Williams and in just giving us our little NFL analysis, where he talks about the NFC East a lot, talks about his days playing football and what it's like to be in that huddle, Jack, and on that team as they play and he played for playoffs and actually was on the 85 team with the Giants that went and ended up losing to that great 85 Bears team in the championship game, where Sean Landeta actually missed the ball when he went to punt it. It was so windy out there. So he has the experience, and it's great having him on, getting his inside knowledge, and he does a great job for us. And so there you go, Jack.
Yeah, Sean Landeta, great punter, big boxing fan. He actually sat behind me at some boxing shows at Madison Square Garden's Felt Forum. That's during his playing days. He liked going to the fights.
Really? Really? I didn't.
Very unusual to miss a punt because of the wind. I mean, I remember a story, Stu Miller, pitcher for the San Francisco Giants. He was blown off the mound at Candlestick Park in his windup because that ballpark was known for its wind.
Really? Really? I did not know that either, Jack. I mean, the wind affecting not just the ball, but the pitcher blowing him off the mound. Now I
should ask you that as a trivia question.
Yeah,
Which pitcher was blown off the mound because of the wind when he was in his windup?
That's crazy. I mean, I remember Phil Simms and even Eli Manning, especially Phil Simms. He said the toughest place he ever threw was in Giant Stadium because of that wind, to keep that tight spiral and to make sure it got to the receiver. That was the hardest thing. He didn't care about the rain or snow. Go ahead.
I got to tell you a game that people don't remember, and I was at this game the year after the Jets won the Super Bowl as defending Super Bowl champions. They had a so-so year. They were 10-4. They started 1-2. They really didn't have a tough schedule, and they coasted all year long. Now they're in the playoffs, and they're playing the Kansas City Chiefs, who beat the Jets in the regular season 34-16. The Chiefs had a powerhouse team. Yeah. But the Jets are playing them at Shea Stadium. And it was so windy, so cold and windy. At that point in 1970, it was one of the coldest games in NFL history. And Joe Namath kept throwing the ball, and it kept dying in the wind.
Yeah.
This is Joe Willie, great passer, great velocity, but the ball was going nowhere because of the wind. So eventually, the Chiefs win the game 13-6 and went on and won the Super Bowl. But afterward, the Jet coach, Reed Eubanks, said, if we didn't have those conditions with the wind, we'd be right back in the Super Bowl. But who knows whether that would have been the case.
Because the quarterback for the Chiefs, Len Dawson, was no scrub either, and he did have.
Len Dawson hit like 2 passes in a row when it was 6-up to go up 13-6.
Yeah.
He had the wind maybe to his back that moment, but nevertheless, the wind could play, big factor. People don't realize in football, the conditions have, play an incredible factor sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, and that Kansas City Chief team, as you said, was a great team. And they went on and beat the Vikings in that Super Bowl with Joe Kapp, and that defense destroyed Joe Kapp. I remember him getting killed trying to run that ball, which he was really good at. And that was one of the first Super Bowls that Minnesota lost. They went to 3 more with Fran Tarkenton, and lost. Yeah, that was a great team. And I think that was the first time that I can remember anyway, Jack, where a coach was actually mic'd up during a Super Bowl where Hank Stram was on there and famously, he was cheering his team on and laughing and screaming. And it was quite the show.
Hank Stram was very funny. The Chiefs did a job on the Vikings, but then they played again opening game of the next season, and the Vikings actually beat the Chiefs to open up the next season.
Right. So, it's all about the moment, I guess, Jack, where the conditions and the game in that moment, who wins that time, that's the great thing about football, Jack. You lose, you go home, man. There's no 2 out of 3. There's no 3 out of 4. You couldn't do it anyway.
Playoff football, one and done, is great.
Yeah.
I won't call it a crapshoot. The NFL to me is never a crapshoot.
Yeah.
Sometimes the team catches a break, but the better team normally wins. It's more scary if you're coaching a powerhouse NCAA team and during the NCAA tournament, because basketball's a little more unpredictable. What could happen in one game? Hockey and definitely baseball, anyone can beat anyone on a given day. Like, let's say in baseball, the Brooklyn Cyclones were going to play the New York Yankees, a minor league team, 100 games. The Cyclones would win at least, a couple of those games, even though they're a minor league team. But if you take a Division III, let's say, college team and put them up against an elite NFL team, they get massacred every time.
There's no doubt about that. In fact, a real college, a top 4 college team would get massacred by the worst team in football. But, I really agree with Bill Belichick with what he said, and I always thought this too, coaching, is that you lose the game. The other team really doesn't win the game. You lose the game by turnovers, by penalties in certain situations. You miss a tackle, which you would normally make. And normally you don't win the other team, or you don't win the game. The other team loses it because they're so equal. And I don't care if you're talking about the Jets. I don't care if you're talking about Jacksonville. Even with all their losses, Jack, especially Jacksonville and some of the lower teams, they lose at the last play of the game by a stupid mistake or a penalty flag on a pass interference that puts the team on a goal line, which I think they should do away with that penalty at the spot of the ball. I think that's a terrible penalty. I think it's very unfair to the defense because I think, in college, they still have the pass interference at 15 yards. The offensive pass interference, it doesn't go to, the place on the other side of the field where the ball, it's not like, you had an offensive pass interference at, the 20-yard line going towards a touchdown. They don't set you back to the other 20-yard line. So I think that's one of the most unfair penalties in the NFL. It makes it easy for a team that is not as good as another team at that game to win the game. I think it's very unfair, and I think they should do away with that penalty.
Mac, you know what I'd like to see that the NFL has never had? An evaluation of a penalty. Maybe they could have a statistic. I'm not sure whether it would work to have a stat on it, but if it would be great. Let's say a guy returns a punt for a touchdown and it gets called back because of a clip or holding or whatever the reason. Sure. I want to go back to the play, and it should be evaluated. Would the guy have been successful returning the kick back if it wasn't for the penalty?
Right.
Now, if the penalty was the reason he was able to score, have a big gain, then I don't blame the player who was penalized. He's trying to make something happen, and had he not clipped another play or held him, then it wouldn't have happened. But the stupid penalty where the guy would have scored without you doing what you did, that's what I want to find out. That's what I couldn't tolerate if I was a coach. If a play got called back and you had nothing to do with affecting that play, yet you were penalized and the team got hurt because of it.
And that's a good point too, Jake. I mean, can you imagine, all right, you're the Chicago Bears, you're playing the Green Bay Packers, you're beating them the whole game, you're up by 3, it's 4th and 10, they take a shot downfield with like a minute left, and your defensive back runs into the wide receiver, and then you got 1st and goal. I mean, how does that not affect the score of the game? I don't understand that penalty. It used to be 15 yards a long time ago. It wasn't placed at the where the penalty happened. I think it's so unfair that it gives another team a big advantage. When it's
I don't know about that. I can't say I agree with you, Mac. It's late in the game, and let's say there are 45 seconds left. You have your ball on your own 15-yard line and have to go 85 yards, and you have to stretch the field. You're going to throw like a 30, 35-yarder to try to get to around midfield to get within range, being able to throw in the end zone. The defensive team is going to know there's such a little amount of time left. We can give you a couple of 15-yard penalties. So,
So how you affect that, Jack, is you just put the time back on the clock before the play started. So they can't do that because you're going to start 15 yards down.
Yes, I give them the time back on the penalty, the original time. That makes some sense. Yeah.
I just don't like it. And backstage right now, Jack, we have Keith Engle, who of course comes in for us every Sunday after he does his show over at TGI Sports. And Keith is a great analyst of the NFL. He has a great sports broadcast over at TGI Sports Talk. He joins us every Sunday with a lot of insight. And I'm going to ask him that question when I bring him on board about the unfair, interference call for place of where the ball or that play happened. It gives some teams a chance to score when maybe they couldn't have scored if they only got that 15-yard penalty. So let's welcome in Keith. Keith, me and Jack were just talking about
Happy New Year, Keith.
Yeah, Happy New Year,
you guys.
I was talking for both Mac and myself, wishing you Happy New Year.
Thank you. And I get scared every time Jack talks for me, Keith. We were talking to Byron. He was a wide receiver, and we mentioned how great it is to be a wide receiver in the league today, as it was opposed to when he was back in 1985 when he was a wide receiver for the Giants, which was was a pound and ground game. The rules were a lot different, and I've always had a problem with the NFL adopting. In college, you get a defensive pass interference is 15 yards, right? But in the pros, say the Patriots are winning the game against Buffalo, it's like 2 minutes left. They throw the ball down. They're at the Patriots 20. It's third. They got to make this play. They throw it downfield. The Patriots defensive back runs into the wide receiver, not on purpose, by accident. It's down now. It's down at the 5-yard line. First and goal for Buffalo. How does that not affect the score of the game?
I agree. I think I heard you talking when I was backstage that you agree with the college rule where it's a 15-yard penalty and a first down. I do too. I mean, I watched too many games where exactly what you're talking about, Mac, has affected the game. You just throw it up for grabs, and especially the way pass interference is called so indiscriminately today. Every official seems to have his own interpretation of what pass interference is.
Right.
It should not affect the outcome of the games as badly as it does, or as much as it does, by placing a ball at the 1-yard line if the penalty's in the end.
Now, Jack brought up a great point, though. He said, well, then if the defense knows this, and this is why they changed the penalty, Keith. The defense knows that they're going to interfere with them. They get a 15-yard penalty. It's still the clock's running, whatever. So my answer to that was, well, then put the time back on the clock again. Give them 15 yards. Let them go again. See, I just think that, we talk about, the refs and their calls affecting games. I think the NFL, with that rule, affects the games where some teams that are winning the game at the end of the game, and it doesn't have to be 40 seconds, it could be 2 minutes. They're up by 3 points, and all of a sudden, this quarterback, he knows that, he's got a good receiver, that he's got one-on-one coverage or whatever, and he just, like you said, throws the ball up. There's a little tug. There you go, first and goal. That's so unfair to the defense, especially when the offensive pass interference doesn't get that ruling. They don't make them go back, to the.
It's a point well taken that could be debated. I agree with the part you said about the clock. I'm curious Keith's opinion of this, and I wish I had remembered to say it to Byron, what we talked about early in the show, that big brawl between Mississippi State and Tulsa. I mean, to me, there've got to be serious repercussions of what took place. I'm kind of curious, Keith, your view, of what took, that melee. It was ridiculous.
It was an ugly situation. It certainly doesn't shine a good light on the NCAA and the coaches for both sides involved in that game. I still don't know that I'm clear on what set it off, but it really doesn't matter. I mean, I think I saw a shot of somebody getting kicked in the face as somebody walked by him. I don't know if that was the originator of the melee or not, but still, it's a horrible look for the NCAA football, and there has to be repercussions. And to me, these are the types of things. Again, you're dealing with young men. I understand, but this is discipline, and this comes down to coaching. In my view, this stuff can't happen. And you can't let your teams do this. These teams should be self-disciplining themselves and those players that were involved. Heck, I don't know how you're going to do it. Everybody was involved, it looked like. But it's just, again, it's a black eye for the NCAA as far as I'm concerned. And in a game that, good grief, I mean, how is Mississippi State even in that game? But that's a different story, by the way. But
well, Jack brought up a great point I agree with. The coach that came out and said, well, we stick together, should be immediately
Philip Montgomery, right.
Immediately fired. This is not a gang war.
I agree.
This is a football game. I played football for a while, Keith. I coached for quite a while. And if any of my players ever did that during the game, never mind getting a brawl, but just start a brawl, he'd be on the bench and maybe back in the locker room before the fight was over. I'd go out in the field and yank him off myself. I mean, there is no way, no matter how physical it is, emotional it is, and it is very physical. And I played the game, and on the field, you get carried away. Sometimes you do, but you don't participate in something like that. And if that director, if the sports director for the athletic director for that, both those colleges doesn't do something, these schools. I mean, if I was NCAA, I might ban them out of it for next year. I might do it. I might say you're not playing next year. I mean, I might do that. Yeah.
It's entirely possible, and as far as the protecting, jumping in and protecting your players. Yes, you need to have your players' backs, right? You go back to Andy Dalton and that bad hit that he got against, I think it was the Redskins. I can't remember who knocked him out. I think it was the Redskins. You need to protect your quarterback in that situation, but you take care of it during the course of the game. You don't start an all-out brawl like that. Same thing in baseball, right? Put it in baseball terms. You need a pitcher needs to protect his hitter, right? But you don't. There's ways to do it within the course of the game.
You know what seemed to set it off? At times, it seemed to be settling down. And both teams were together face to face. And it always takes one knucklehead to start swinging, and then a second one. And then they want to join in for their teammate, and then all hell breaks loose. I'm saying you go to the videotape, you watch carefully who initiated it, who could have walked away. I'm not going to penalize a player who was fighting, who was defending himself. I'd never do that. I don't expect him to stay there and get pummeled. If he's hitting back because he's getting attacked, no penalty to him as far as I'm concerned. But when things calmed down and someone started swinging or chasing another player and kicking him when he's on the ground and showing an indifference to human life, and when you have the state troopers storming the field, that's ridiculous. And there's got to be serious accountability. I don't want to hear that they're just kids. Some of them who went too far should be just kicked out of school. Let them reapply to another college. They should be dismissed what they did to the university.
Yeah, I don't disagree with either one of you guys as far as the actions needing to be meaningful and harsh. Again, part of a coach's job, and still in college, still, I don't care if it's NCAA where there's a lot of money involved. I don't care. Part of their job is still molding of young men, and
having them under control.
Having them under control. Yeah, well, that's part of molding.
These aren't grown men. This isn't a veteran team where the players are going to take things in their own hands. Like take coaches of young NFL teams, young coaches like a Brian Flores. You get the feeling he could control his team. Mike Tomlin can control his team. Joe Judge can control his team. They're young men, similar to young college players. But to see the kids, I mean, just go off like that, and to hear, Philip Montgomery, the Tulsa coach, saying, we stick together as a team, come on.
And again, we talked about player sanctions, or maybe Mac talked about penalizing universities, but the coaches have to be held accountable as well, and certainly he needs to be held accountable, because I didn't hear Mike Leach make those types of comments after the game.
Well, Mike Leach was saying, well, it's dumb who did it, that's obvious, but then he says, I'm not saying we didn't have a hand in this. Obviously both teams had a hand in it. Which players? I wanted to hear Mike Leach say, we're going to find out from our team if anyone incited this on our team. We're going to look at the tape. There are going to be some serious consequences going on with our team. We're not, take charge. We're not going to put up with this. There are going to be serious consequences from anyone on our team who's responsible for this. And not naming players and put it out there. Don't just say it's dumb. That's obvious it's dumb.
Well, he may not know who the players are involved yet, but everybody
go to the tape
from both sides, and the NCAA is going to be reviewing that tape.
Definitely. And Keith, just to take it one step forward, and we'll get off this. If I'm a team in the NFL and one of those players I'm thinking about drafting, I'm not thinking about drafting them anymore.
Exactly.
So that's they're just hurting themselves in the long run. And of course, if you're a college coach looking for higher aspirations and you can't coach your team at the college level, I don't think any NFL organization will be, standing in line to hire you. So
I don't either.
To finish that off, I think they hurt themselves a lot too. So let's get to the AFC East, and I want to talk about your Patriots for a minute. And I want to tell you something that's irritated me.
Is it baseball season?
Yes, almost.
Well, listen.
That's really irritated me, Keith, from the beginning of the year about the Patriots, and not the Patriots themselves, but by big media. Okay, when they, first it was the Brady Belichick thing, which was ridiculous to begin with. As I said to Jack, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were 7-9 last year, so they've improved maybe 3 or 4 games with the greatest quarterback supposedly in the history of football, and not having a quarterback that threw 30 interceptions and a lot of pick sixes. So to me, the improvement was okay. So I'm going to get that out of the way first.
Yeah.
Bringing in Cam Newton, all of a sudden the big media outlets, whether they're former players or for some other reason that I didn't want to get into, when they picked up Cam Newton, they were crying, it's because of certain situations or a certain maybe skin color that he's not getting a shot or enough money offered on this contract. He signs with the Patriots because the Patriots give him an opportunity to become starting quarterback. That's why he went there. And of the first things you heard, the Patriots are the favorite to win the conference because they signed Cam Newton. And they weren't watching the last 2 years or 3 years of Cam Newton playing for the Carolina Panthers, I imagine. But
or the New England offense the last 2 years.
Right. I mean, the last the after the playoffs. In fact, the last half year of the Patriots, they fell off the side of the road. So
right.
When they went and said this, now they're going back and saying, well, maybe we overreacted. I mean, you guys are supposed to be professionals. You're supposed to be watching the teams. You're supposed to be watching how the players play, and you're supposed to be being an analyst to analyzing is a word I could say a minute ago. You're supposed to be able to do this because you're a professional. You're getting paid a lot of money. It's not supposed to be your personal feelings. It's not supposed to be a pie in the sky thing. They got Cam Newton that no other team wanted. They didn't want him. They didn't sign him. They picked him up at a cheap price because they needed a quarterback. So that irritated me right from the jump, Keith, about what happened with the Patriots this year.
Yeah, I don't understand. I never understood it then. I mean, again, whether it's the national news media or the people that I follow on Facebook or my own friends, right, tell me, oh, Cam this, Cam that. I mean, if they thought Cam Newton was going to be the second coming of Tom Brady, he wouldn't have signed so late in the year for $1 million.
Right.
They'd have got him in, back in February or, not during the summer. I mean, come on.
I
This
think
team
it's
was never
important.
going to be what it was with Cam Newton. He's a shell of himself.
I think it's important to point out, and people forget, when New England signed Cam Newton, they didn't know whether he would start. They didn't even know whether he'd make the team. I was one of those who thought he might get cut, might not even make the team. So I was a little surprised when he was named the starting quarterback. Obviously, he proved himself during training camp, and Bill Belichick said at the time his exact words, and I think he meant it, that Cam's a really hard-working kid.
Yeah.
Like, he was impressed with how hard Cam Newton worked and thought he'd maybe catch a little lightning in the bottle, what Cam Newton could do for him, what he did during his MVP season at Carolina. Maybe not be as great, but good enough. And listen, in the way they started, they were 2-0. They just barely missed being 3-0. And in the beginning, after a couple of games, people were saying, you know, what a good move it was, that New England might be better off with Cam Newton than Brady. People change week to week.
Yeah.
You know, they change week to week in their views.
Well, that's the nature of the beast, right? And Jack, it's weird because I find myself agreeing with everything you just said there about leading up to the season.
Yeah.
He was not the favorite in training camp. Jason Stidham. Garrett Stidham was the favorite. He had some injuries, didn't play as well as they expected him to. Cam kind of won the job by default. You're right, he got off to a good start. But, you know, they didn't throw the ball a lot. They were fooling teams with some things that they weren't expecting, the running plays from the old Auburn offensive playbook. And, you know, the NFL catches up with that stuff pretty quick.
Yeah.
Had Julius Edelman been healthy, the calming influence, he could have that veteran presence. That may have helped a little early on.
It might have, but, you know, Edelman early on was a shell of himself. If he was healthy, it might have been different. But to go back to Cam for 1 second, you know, it's all great to hear, you know, oh, he's been great in the locker room. They love his leadership, and he's wonderful in practice, and everybody's, you know, falling all over themselves to praise Cam. But at the end of the day, this is the NFL. You got to win football games.
Right.
Yeah.
You're a great leader, but you're not leading us to a lot of victories, right? So,
you know, I mean, listen, I don't think a lot of quarterbacks would have been successful with the Patriots offense this year. I'm not saying that Cam's the reason why the Patriots had a bad season. I'm just saying that Cam Newton, from what he was as an MVP, which was a dynamic running and throwing quarterback. People forget when Cam Newton was healthy, he could sling that ball pretty well. So he always had a little bit of control problems, a little bit of problems with accuracy, but he could make those big plays. And he just can't do it anymore. He can't throw that ball the way he used to throw the ball and fit him in the tight windows. Yeah. So, I mean, you know, Keith, I mean, listen, I mean, I'm not trying to berate Cam because Cam is what he is right now. And while they did win the first 2 games, as you said, that was with good defense and him running the ball. And Cam Newton is not young enough, like Jackson is, to be that dynamic as he was when he first started playing football.
Certainly not over 16 games.
Right.
You know, and I agree with what you're saying. I'm not really blaming Cam. I mean, again, this team would have been probably where they are with whoever played quarterback, unless – you know, Trevor Lawrence came out last year and they found a way to get him. This is where they were going to be, but he's also not the answer going forward. So
I think he's a bit of a scapegoat, Cam Newton, on the Patriots season. Sure. I mean, they have really, as far as I'm concerned, one really good running back in Sony Michel, and he's been hurt.
Well, Harris played very well too. I think they got some. I think the running back situation. If he stays healthy, I think Harris can be a very, very serviceable NFL.
But they're wideouts and nothing to brag about in there. You know, even that great
improvement needed everywhere, right?
Right. Listen,
N'Keal Harry is a washout. It's their receivers. Maybe Jacoby Myers, he stepped up, but he was kind of up and down.
A little while he stepped up, yeah.
Trevor Lawrence would even have saved the Patriots.
Listen, I'll be honest.
I kind of just was making a wild.
Guys, I was thinking a second ago, if Aaron Rodgers hypothetically was the Patriot quarterback all year, at best, instead of being 6-9, at best they would be 9-6. probably 8-7. You know, the quarterback. I'm talking about the elite of the elite.
He might have
Rodgers and
retired at
Mahomes.
midseason.
He might have.
They wouldn't make the playoffs one way or the other. Yeah.
So
I agree.
let's get to the Patriots next game, and I'm a little scared for you guys. I mean,
I don't want to lose to the Jets.
the Jets seem to have come alive. There is, of course,
had a horrible time for them.
There's word Adam Gase is going to be fired at the end of the season, which I expect. But it's not how good the Jets are playing. It's a combination of how well they're playing competitively and how bad the Patriots situation is right now. And, I don't I'm a Bill Belichick fan because he was a coach of the Giants. I have a feeling that you guys are in trouble this
I love the game. I'm locked into the Jets. I can finally root for the Jets again this year because they're picking number 2 regardless of whether they win or lose. So I want them to go for it. But of course the Jets foul me up. Why does their game have to be played opposite the Giant-Cowboy game? I really want to see the Giant-Cowboy game. So it's going to be hard for me to watch the Jet game while that's going on.
Jack, you put your computer. Well, I don't know how you watch television these days. I stream everything, so I put 2 computers up.
It's hard. I tried that. I channel scan, switch back and forth games.
Yeah.
But I learned I got to give most of my concentration to the game I most want to see to really, absorb everything the way I want.
Well, if it's been the Jets, you should stop spending so much time watching them, I think.
Yeah.
Listen, to go back to your question, I think the Jets definitely have a chance to win this game. There's no reason for them not to want to win the game. They've obviously proved that they didn't want to go unbeaten. I'm sorry. What's the word? Unvictorious all year.
Right. Question is this. If it's true what they're saying about Adam Gase, if he knows he's getting fired at the end of the game, he's probably going to tell his team, this is my last game. I shouldn't say probably, maybe not. Every coach handles it differently. But the players will be able to sense what's going on. What are their feelings towards him? I don't have a clue. Would they play extra hard for him, want to send him out with a win? Would that be a motivation? Or just win three in a row? Are they all just auditioning for jobs next year? That's the most likely scenario.
Yeah, I think on both sides of the ball, I think they're auditioning for next year, and the guys that have pride and want to compete that team will win. Whoever has the most pride and wants to compete will win.
It's the biggest audition for Sam Darnold, Keith.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with that. But to go back to your Adam Gase comments, I don't sense that there's any great love on the team for Adam Gase, that they're going to want to go out. Let's win one for the Gipper, right? I mean, and Adam Gase can't come back. I'm sorry. He went last 3 games. It's an illusion. I don't care about his relationship with the owner.
Christopher Johnson seems to like him. Those are the reports.
You know what? But you know what? I've had a lot of people that worked for me that I liked a lot, and I had to fire them because it wasn't working out, and it's not going to work. He's proved it now in 2 different places. He's probably going to go somewhere and do a great job as a coordinator, if not next year, then the year after.
It takes them too long to get going. Last year, they were 6-2 the second half of the season, and if they win Sunday, they'd be 3-0 the last 3 games, but it's the overall record. Obviously, they have to change the culture. And I know Mac's a fan of Sam Darnold, but not of Adam Gase.
I'm a fan of Sam Darnold, to be honest with you. And I don't think Chris Johnson can sell it to his fan base why he would be bringing back Adam Gase. I just don't know how he can do it. Yeah, maybe it could be a little different. He certainly was not coming back if they kept the first pick and brought in Trevor Lawrence. You're not handing the keys to Trevor Lawrence, to Adam Gase after his track record. Now it's a little different because they're going to be drafting. Well, I don't know. They're not even locked into the 2 spot, I don't think, are they?
I think they are locked into
the 2 spot. Okay.
Yeah.
Who are they going to take?
Good question.
No, the new coach would have a big say on the future of Sam Darnold.
I think that's a quarterback. I really don't think it's going to be a quarterback.
Son Keith, I think there's a couple ways they can go with this because there are teams that need quarterbacks. First of all, Adam Gase has got to go at the end of the year to set up the new regime and get their picks and be involved with the GM. I think the GM should be thrown out too, just in my opinion.
I'll tell you who I draft if I was the Jets at number 2.
Well, you know what I would do? You know what I would
Devontae
do?
Smith.
You know what I would do, Keith? I would trade that draft pick for about more draft picks. That's what I would do, and try to build. I mean, set up this new coach to come in like they did with Flores. You know, to have a bunch of draft picks coming in. They already got some with Adams, the Jamal Adams trade. Get more. I mean, you're talking about a good GM that knows how to make deals with free agents next year. A better Sam Darnold, a better offensive crew. Get more draft picks, or at least trade these draft picks for some free agents that you might want. I don't know. However you want to do that, wheel and deal the best you can and try to get yourself set for the next couple of years. If you're going to change the culture, you need to do that.
Yeah, I don't think they can stay there and take a quarterback at 2 because I don't think anybody's a sure thing at the next level except for Trevor Lawrence, to be honest with you. I mean, they're all great college quarterbacks, but I don't think any of them are a sure thing. And if they keep the pick, I would draft Devontae Smith out of Alabama.
Well, let me tell you something. In the Ohio State-Clemson game, if by some chance the Ohio State quarterback Justin Fields plays a phenomenal game, he outplays Trevor Lawrence, and then they go on to win the national championship, they beat Alabama. I'm assuming Alabama beats Notre Dame. They haven't played yet. That changes the equation if Justin Fields could get back his old form, and you never know. But listen, Jamal Adams, he's been sensational since they traded him to Seattle. He's been hurt part of the time, but he's been like the best defensive player in the league. I would give up draft picks to get him back. I'd give up the draft pick you gave me and throw in another one to get him
I don't think he's going back to New York.
That's not happening. That's So Keith, let's get to the AFC. Finish up the AFC East and a couple of AFC games I want to get your thoughts on.
Sure.
You got Buffalo and Miami coming up. Buffalo, they might rest their players. Miami, now Fitzpatrick's got the COVID, and Tua's going to have to go in there and show that he's the future there. At least have a good game. Yeah. It becomes a very interesting game. Miami loses, they may be out of the playoffs.
Yeah, they're still right now. I think they're in. Right, they control their own destiny. I believe.
If they win, they're in. If they lose, they need help, and they're not getting help because the teams they need help from aren't going to beat them. The Ravens have to lose to the Bengals one of the games. Indianapolis has to lose to the Jaguars. That's not going to happen. And I think Tennessee, it could happen. I think Tennessee has to lose to the Texans. That could happen. Okay, so, but they better win Miami if they want to be in.
It is great, though, not to go off topic a little bit. It's great that there's so many games that are meaningful this last weekend. There's so many years where it isn't. As far as the Miami game goes, a lot does hinge on whether Buffalo decides to rest their guys. I mean, every team has a different outlook on that. I thought they might rest some guys in the second half last week, and they really didn't until very late in the game.
Well, Miami's decimated in their bullpen. Their relief pitcher, Ryan Fitzpatrick, is out. Rex Ryan, by the way, went on ESPN and called him a relief pitcher. You bring him in the ninth inning, you let him close it out, and then Tua starts the next game. I kind of loved it, and Brian Flores has been talking like that relief pitch he's used to talk. They've watched the Mac and Jack show. They can't attribute it and give any credit to me on that, so they're just using the term. This is good stuff.
That's your intellectual property, Jack. You ought to sue them, I think.
I mean, I love for Brian Flores at the press conference, to just mention me. You can't have me there because of the COVID.
I do like to
give me any credit.
Jack gets relief quarterback into every show, though. It's amazing.
So, Jack, to get back to Keith's thoughts on the Buffalo-Miami game, please.
Yes. I'll be honest with you. I think it's a blessing a little bit that for Brian Flores that Fitzpatrick got sick. I mean, it's not a good thing that he's got COVID. Don't get me wrong, but he doesn't now have to make a decision about who to start. It's cut and dry.
No, Tua was starting. That wasn't a decision. But
I shouldn't say that.
Be brought into games.
But he has no. What I meant is he has no backlash for that decision now.
He has the locker room. The team's not divided. There might be media. There might be a little controversy, but within the locker room.
Well, remember,
so they're fine. The players like both guys a lot. Both quarterbacks have an excellent relationship. You mentioned Buffalo. I don't think they're playing a home game against Miami this weekend. I don't think fans allowed in, but Governor Cuomo is allowing 6,700 people in for
Now-
the Buffalo
now
game. My feeling is, from someone who respects the COVID situation and believes very fiercely in the masks and social distancing, only 6,700 people in the stadium. I kind of feel they could let in a little more and space them out.
You see
I
what
don't know why they're letting anybody in. Why have you gone all this time letting nobody in? But now you're going to let 6,700 people in. You're going to test them on the way in.
They haven't had a playoff game in 25 years, and the governor plans to attend the game.
You see what I go through over
someone
show,
else
Keith?
going.
I mean, he'll go down a side street and just go. I mean, I try to keep Jack in the line somewhat, but boy, he just
Well,
goes.
it's important.
You know what?
Mac, I got to cut in. They got to get covered.
My grandfather, Matt, my grandfather told
6,700
me-
people in a stadium that seats, what, 60,000 or so?
Hey, Jack, let me cut in. Hey, Keith,
just so you know, my grandfather told me, just to allude to Jack a little bit here, my grandfather always told me that 10 miles of highway equals 20 miles of ditch. So, you know.
Right. So, Keith, now,
As long as you get to the location.
Now that we didn't get your thoughts on Buffalo and Miami, let me not get your thoughts on
Miami
Cleveland. Thank you. Cleveland and Pittsburgh, right? Ben Roethlisberger is not going to start. Cleveland shut down their facilities because of COVID. Who knows what will happen that game? Believe it or not, Pittsburgh was underdogs by 7 when the line started. What do you think is going to happen there? I mean, now the advantage is not in Cleveland's favor anymore. It's more equal. I mean, Cleveland loses it, they're out.
Yeah, I agree. I just don't. I mean, Pittsburgh's got the division wrapped up, and they're playing Mason Rudolph at quarterback. I just think the Browns will have enough talent to at least win this game. I don't know what the spread will be. I don't know what they'll win by. I just don't see the Steelers winning with Mason Rudolph at quarterback, and I don't know who else they're going to rest either, because the game doesn't really mean anything to them, I don't believe. So maybe some seeding with Buffalo, but so what? You know, there's no buys to worry about. I like the Browns to win that game.
Well, we'll see who they sit too, Keith. I mean, that COVID, we'll see who it affects.
I think it would be a much bigger disappointment for Cleveland, much bigger if they don't make the playoffs than it would be for the Dolphins. I think the Dolphins are the one team that could lose Sunday, miss out on making the playoffs, and look back and say, this has been a good year. Our time is coming. But Cleveland's time has been delayed, and for them to miss the playoffs this year with a 10-6 record, it would be a bitter pill to swallow.
This is a big spot for Baker Mayfield. You know, he's got his detractors. I have been one of them. I'm not sold on him necessarily being able to take the next step. This is a big spot for him to come up. I don't care if he's playing against Mason Rudolph or Ben Roethlisberger. He needs to win the game to win over some of those people that are his detractors, including myself. Not that he cares about what I think.
Keith.
Oh. We turn that up. Sounds like trivia to me. I don't know.
So, Keith.
I don't know what the heck that is.
You don't know what that is, Keith? I know Keith knows what it is, Jack. You might not. But we got Keith in here to talk about the Knicks, too. We want to get some of that in there before we have to let him go. Yes, the Knicks.
That's a train wreck music for the Knicks.
We're right now. The Knicks are at 2-3. They had their most impressive win against the Bucks. They were hurt last game. All 4 of their guards, well, not all, but 4 of their guards didn't play against the Raptors. Have you been checking out how they've been playing? Do you think they look better overall than they did last year in the beginning, Keith?
They're about what I expected. They're very up and down, which is going to drive Thibodeau crazy, I'm sure. But I think there's some. Again, beating the Bucks by what they beat them by 30. I mean, that totally came out of nowhere. Tough. The Raptors are a tough team to play, even though they were playing them basically in a neutral site. They beat Cleveland. I still think there's reason for hope here. One of the reasons is watching Julius Randle, the way he's transformed his game. He's in better shape than he's ever been. He's only 26 years old.
Yeah.
we've talked about the Knicks being able to develop some stars internally so they can attract guys from outside. Julius Randle is averaging over 20 points a game, over 10 rebounds a game, 7 assists a game.
Yeah.
I mean, he's bringing back, in my mind, we don't hear it a lot anymore, the term point forward, but he's kind of running the offense a lot through him. And it's deflecting some of the problems that they have at point guard, at least at the present. And I think when they get healthy, I mean, they played without Burks, who's been a very pleasant surprise this year, the last couple of games. But I think they're kind of where I expected them to be. They're going to be up and down. I think they have a chance to go 500 this year. I really do. There just has to be more nights like the Bucks night and less nights like last night.
Yeah,
I think you're overestimating what Julius Randle can do. My theory is any bad team, and I don't want to say the Knicks are a bad team, but let's say any bad team, you're going to have someone who has to score points, someone who has to get rebounds, and it's going to give us an overinflated opinion as far as how good they are, because someone has to have the ball in their hands and take the shots. Julius Randle is a decent player, but put him on a good NBA team, and he wouldn't be a star in any way, shape, or form. He might not even start on the number.
Well, he'd be a major contributor to any team.
He'd be a major contributor, exactly. If you put him on the Lakers now, who he used to play for, he would be a good player for them, a useful piece. They would like having him back, I'm sure, if they could get him for nothing. But on the Knicks, he's going to be a star. I'm looking more at their young talent. I'm looking at Barrett more than anyone else.
He's been up
the way he started game one,
yeah,
8 for 8 from the 3-point line, and then what did he go 0 for 17 after that? What did the Knicks 3-point shooting their starters yesterday? There was something like 0 for 23. It was ridiculous.
Well, none of them are that good, as a rule, but the play of the guards has got to get much more consistent, right? I mean, Barrett's been up and down, just like the team, and the team's going to go up and down with those. I think the guard play this year. Burks again. Burks has picked it up and helped a lot. Barrett's been up and down. Peyton's been hurt a lot. Played one good game, I think, against the Bucks. Actually, was the night he kind of broke out.
Yeah.
Quickly's been out for a while. I'm impressed with his game. I think there's some building blocks here.
Yeah.
I think you're underselling Julius Randle a little bit, but that's fine.
No, I'm not. He's a good piece. If you have really good players, he would fit in nicely.
Yeah.
I don't mean it that way, but
no, I get it.
Seemed like if you're thinking of him, like he could be a star in the league. Okay,
no, I
don't look at it that way at all.
I think he's a good player where other players would like to come and play with him. That's my point.
I don't think he would attract free agents. He's not a marquee type player is what I'm trying to say. I wouldn't put him anywhere close to the level of, let's say, a Kyrie Irving on the court.
Oh, Kyrie comes with his own issues, but that's
right. That's why I said on the court.
Keith, that's why Keith.
Stands in the way of Toppin too. That's another little issue with Randle is they play the same position, Toppin and Randle, so they're going to have some challenges there.
Why I thought, Keith, they should have tried to get Westbrook. At least they would have had a bridge and they would have had a real.
Yeah. Wait, Mac.
And Jack, we ain't got a lot of time left, Jack. We're not going to go
Westbrook, they're 0-5.
Jack, we got like 7 minutes left, Jack. We haven't even touched everything. Relax for a second. So, Keith, I felt that way anyway, that it would have helped them bridge over for the next couple of years till they got a point guard.
I still feel that way.
Yeah. So, Keith, thank you for coming in. We enjoy your spot every week, and good luck with your show with TGI Sports. You're doing a great job over there. A member of the Northeast Streaming Sports Network now, and we'll see you next week, Keith.
Enjoy being there. It's going to be fun. A fun little venture. See how it goes. It's going to be exciting.
Definitely.
Happy New Year, Keith.
Happy New Year, you guys. Jack, no more coffee today. Slow down there, bud.
I have my 1 cup to start the day.
Thanks, Keith. So there you go. Keith Engle with his weekly guest spot on the show. We got, as I said, 7 minutes left of the show, Jack. So no break. We're going to go right to this day in sports history. The trivia question we'll save for the next show. So, Jack, in 1974, Lee MacPhail takes over as AL president of the MLB.
Yeah, the league presidents actually have a lot of power. They make decisions as far as suspensions, appeals, and so on. And Lee MacPhail worked for the Yankees for a number of years in an executive position, as well. And he's a name from the past who had a big impact in baseball in the front offices, back in the day, like you're talking about the 70s, so on.
Definitely. And Jimmy Connors also in 1974. He wins the Australian Open. Have you ever seen a harder worker on a tennis court, Jack, than Jimmy Connors? Really?
I've never seen a more tenacious player than Jimmy Connors. I mean, the man wouldn't quit no matter what the score was. He battled. Do I miss those matches against John McEnroe, the clashing personalities and all? And a great player, won Wimbledon a couple of times, won the U.S. Open a number of times, was a big, big favorite here in New York. And remember when he was 41 years old, he went on that run to go to the semifinals, which captivated, the sports world.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I remember watching that too, Jack. I'm not the biggest tennis fan, but when McEnroe and Connors and Borg was in there, it was unbelievable.
Something funny. McEnroe, when he was at the height of his powers, once said, "I think I'm the best tennis player in the world." And Jimmy Connors said, "You tell that SOB he'll never be number one as long as I'm around." Yeah, I miss that stuff.
They went at it, man. After 45 years of coaching, Paul Brown retires in 1976, Jack. Some coaches, some great coaches, their opinion is that he's the greatest NFL coach of all time.
Funny thing, when we talk about the greatest coaches of all time, and I'm guilty of this, I don't know whether you are, we talk about Bill Belichick. And then if we want to go back to a lot of years, we go to Vince Lombardi. But there were actually guys that started out before them, like Paul Brown, George Halas, right. Curly Lambeau. We can make you can make an argument that Paul Brown, one of the greatest coaches of all time. And then he worked, in the Bengal front office. He ran the organization a while. One of the great, front office guys, coaches in pro football history.
He really got the forward pass game going. He also, Jack, was one of the first ones to call the plays, which upset some of the players back then when he would rotate his guards in and carry the plays in that way. In 1978, John Madden, the Oakland Raiders, beats the Broncos and wins the championship. And a lot of people don't realize John Madden has the best winning percentage as a head coach.
John Madden was a very good coach, and those Oakland Raiders teams were colorful, all the personalities, charismatic. He coached so many big games, but of course, it's as a broadcaster where we all, love John Madden because he related to the everyday guy. John Madden hated flying, so when he broadcast the game, he had the Madden mobile or the bus or whatever, and they would ride cross country to go to the games because he, wouldn't want to ever fly.
In 2019, Jack, the great Serena Williams and the great Roger Federer combined for 43 major singles titles.
Serena Williams may be the most underrated, one of the most underrated athletes ever. Women tennis wasn't that interesting with her on top because she was so dominant.
Yeah.
She was so dominant. She took the competitiveness out of it. That's how great Serena Williams is. And she should have been given her due a little bit more than she has. And just, one of the great athletes of all time.
Definitely agree. I think there's some men, honestly, I think there's some professional men, maybe not top tier, that she might be able to beat in her prime. Tim,
not the top tier.
Not the top tier. Yeah. Right.
But why make the comparison? She just dominated women's tennis.
Right. Well, I just think that we do talk about women beating men in certain sports. I think at her best, she could have beat not the top tier, like I said, Jack, but some of the men tennis pros out there.
On a given day, yeah, perhaps.
Tim Keefe was born in 1857. Who? Tim Keefe, Jack, Hall of Fame pitcher. He won the Triple Crown back in 1888, Jack. So a Hall of Fame.
Don't look for me to make a comment, Matt.
I won't. But this
I'm not as familiar with them as I should be.
These next two you might. I got to get them in quick. 1911, Hank Greenberg was born. Great ball player for the Tigers, 5-time MLB champion and World Series. Also, 1919, Jack, Rocky Graziano, world middleweight champion, was born in 1919. I don't know. I guess he was one of the better middleweight champions of his time.
No, he wasn't a great middleweight champion, Rocky Graziano, by any means. But his 3-fight series with Tony Zale was the epitome of excitement. Later on, we'd have Arturo Gatti and Mickey Ward that would be comparable to those 3 fights. Rocky Graziano was loved. After he retired, he'd do all these commercials, and his voice, the way he talked, was very, very, appealing. Colorful character. Everyone loved Rocky Graziano.
Right. I did read too, Jack. So that's it for the show today, folks. Thanks for joining in. Thank you to Keith and Byron for joining us today and on New Year's Day. And tomorrow, me and Jack will be back with Yankees historian, I would say, Major League Baseball analysis, Dr. Paul Semendinger, Jack.
Yeah.
Every Saturday, and we'll have a debate show where I'll let you go crazy as you want. So join us tomorrow, folks. Great seeing you tomorrow, 8 to 10 a.m. We'll be back. Have a great New Year's, and we'll see you.